Hello, happy to see everyone here and welcome to Belkins webinar. We're gonna give a few more minutes for everyone else to join, but before we get started, I want to introduce our crew for today. So my name is Julia and I'm responsible for webinars here at Belkins, and I will be moderating this webinar today. And our speakers. Today we have Josh, our outreach expert and content creator. Together with his team, they are making super awesome videos. So you can just go and check out our YouTube to see everything. And of course, our special guest today we have Travis, senior digital content producer from Panda Dog. So I think that Travis is the one who definitely knows how to work with content in a very fresh and engaging way. So, and today they will be talking about edutainment, and just in a little bit, you will hear what is it and how to incorporate it in your strategies. So I feel that I have to leave the stage, but just the very last note. So in the end of webinar, we will have a Q&A session. So everyone, please prepare your questions and let's get started. Super excited. Guys, have a great webinar and I'm passing the microphone to you.
Thank you, Julia. Travis, great to see you. How are you?
Bro, what's up? It is so good to be here. Julia, thank you for the warm introduction. I'm in my panda suit. I'm hyped. I'm drinking liquid death. I got way too much manic, chaotic energy right here. I'm going to drop my LinkedIn in the chat. Feel free to connect with me. Woo!
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm super excited. I've been counting down the days that we finally get to chat about all of this craziness. You know, the memes we've been sending back and forth have been absolutely outstanding. So, yeah, as Julia mentioned, we're going to give the rest of the people that might be joining a couple more minutes. So, you know, why not start off with a meme? You know, we've got one on the screen. If you see it, you know, and a cold calling expert, you know, try social selling on LinkedIn. I've it's interesting because it's like, you know, it depicts somewhat of an older generation of sales, more seasoned, let's say that's more seasoned generation of sales reps. But I remember my cold calling days, and so I'm looking at that picture and I'm like, is that me? Is that really me? Am I one of those guys like trying to sell on LinkedIn now after I did, you know, hundreds and hundreds of calls every single week? But thank you all for being here. We're super excited. We're going to have a lot of really interesting information. We're going to have some laughs today. I'm also drinking some sort of liquid death, so right on. But overall, I guess while we're still waiting, we'll probably give like one more minute. Let's just do some little information about us. So once again, my name's Josh, and I am the outreach expert here at Belkins. I've been doing sales and marketing for about 5 years. And I'm actually, just like a fun fact, I'm a professional musician. I was actually on The Voice here in Ukraine years and years ago.
What?
It was a super fun experience. Yeah, it was something that I never thought would actually happen. And then just randomly, I get a phone call out of the blue and they're like, hey, come sing. And I'm like, seriously? Like, awesome, let's do it. But we also do content now here at Belkins, and I'm leading that with our team. So it's super fun. But Travis, I'll pass along to you, so it's not just me chatting here.
Dude, that's awesome. I didn't know you were on The Voice. That's so
Years ago,
cool.
man, back when I had hair, you know.
Oh, my man. That's way cooler than anything I've ever achieved. Hey, everyone, I'm Travis Tyler, senior digital content producer at PandaDoc. I run our PandaDoc podcast called The Customer Engagement Lab. Go check it out wherever you get your podcast. It is a business comedy show. Sometimes I'm wearing a panda suit, but I am the guy responsible for creating edutainment content at PandaDoc. If you're not familiar with PandaDoc, then you're living under a rock, and I'm sorry. Go check it out. It is a document automation software for e-signature, proposals, quotes, and contracts, and it's thebomb.com.
It is. Honestly, whenever I work with a company, I'm like, we got PandaDoc, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, awesome.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. No sending over those PDFs. You know, ain't nobody got time for that. All right. So Tom Fishburne, the founder and CEO of Marketunist, said the best marketing doesn't feel like marketing. I personally couldn't agree more. I think, Travis, you couldn't agree more. I think that nowadays, especially, everyone is so interested in being entertained. Sales calls, whether it's kind of outreach, whether it's emails, whatever it is, there's got to be some kind of entertainment. There's got to be some kind of, stand outish effects that you're like, wow, I've never seen this before, and I'm really interested, which keeps my attention going. So obviously we're talking about edutainment. How do you define edutainment, and how does it differ from other forms of content marketing?
Yeah, so it's a great setup, and you're right. The best marketing doesn't feel like marketing. The best marketing is when you don't even know you're being marketed to, and you're like, "Oh, I got suckered in." No.
Oh no,
Um,
no.
but yeah, so edutainment, I'll start off before I give you an exact definition. I want to set the stage for edutainment through examples and to help give people an understanding of the history of it. So edutainment has actually been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, going all the way back to the Enlightenment and Renaissance periods. And then probably the most popular publication to actually do this later in history was Benjamin Franklin. Here in the United States, he had this this booklet that he would put out once a month, and it was called Poor Richard's Almanac. And it was this like actually, I think it started out as like an annual publication, and it combined educational content for American colonists on how to behave like a colonist with entertaining topics like puzzles, games, things of that nature. And then the first person to really like coin the term or go all in on edutainment and be like, hey, I'm intentionally doing edutainment at a massive scale internationally was none other than the GOAT, Walt Disney. So if we go back to the 1920s, he created this video, and it's on YouTube. You can Google this. It's called Tommy Tucker's Tooth, and it was for a dental institute. Where he was commissioned to create this video to teach kids on the importance of proper oral hygiene. He then later created a Disney series that is more popular, is more well known today, called it was called True Life Adventures. And it was a fun documentary style nature that was meant to teach people about animals and ecosystems all over the world. And more recent edutainment that maybe you grew up on or I grew up on, that's a bit more part of the popular culture of today, is going to be things like Bill Nye the Science Guy. You and I were just talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson as we were getting ready for this. Sesame Street, Schoolhouse Rock, Bluey, if you've got young children. I am a big fan of John and Hank Green on YouTube, the OGs of YouTube. Those are people who have nailed edutainment. And my definition of it is a genre of media that relies heavily on visuals, narratives, game formats, but incorporates some type of learning objective. If you were to Google edutainment right now, you will see on Wikipedia a Venn diagram. And in that Venn diagram, there are two circles. There is education and there is entertainment. It is where the two intersect. It is where lessons can be had through amusing media. And that, my friends, is my definition of edutainment.
Honestly, I had no clue that you were going to pop this history quiz out about how old it is. That's super cool. I mean, honestly, I didn't even know that it went all the way back then. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, maybe there's even more edutainment back even farther in history, but we just don't have records of it. You never know. I mean, you got to learn somehow. But I just think in general, the whole idea behind it is it's super cool, because a lot of times, even like when I'm doing videos, when I'm trying to make YouTube videos, I'm thinking, how do I make this important and, you know, actually apply value that I can then later on, you know, bring to our viewers? But how do I do it in a way that they're not bored and they're not like falling asleep? Like we've got this monthly trend video that we do when we just talk about trends, what's going on. And this next one is going to be super interesting. We talked about the crash of the Silicon Valley Bank. But the very beginning of the video, when it comes out, be sure and check it out, because it's going to be pretty interesting. It's not like what we've done before in the past, but you know, it's those things as well. It's like, I see you're constantly sharing these videos in your panda suit, and it catches your eye. And then you're trying to help and you're trying to educate in a way that doesn't just leave them either bored or just like crying their eyes out. Like, why did I just waste my time? That was so boring. I don't like, or like, you know, how many people hate studying? It's like, if studying was more entertaining, if studying had more like actual applicable situations, then it would be actually more relative to us. So yeah, but anyways, we're going to go ahead and put up a poll here on your screens. So you should see it popping up now. It's right by the chat box. So if you've ever utilized edutainment in your marketing efforts, let us know. Yes, no, currently exploring. I'm hoping that we'll see a lot of currently exploring, and I'm hoping that towards the end, when we have another poll, your answers will be, you've got ideas, because that's essentially why we're here. We're not here just to drink our killer drinks and watch Travis look like a hotshot in his nice and amazing panda suit. I mean, it's fun, but we really wanted to, we talked about this multiple times before we had this webinar, and we really wanted to make this interesting, but also helpful to the point where you can then take these things and apply it into your own efforts to become more effective and entertain, but also educate. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and move on. So we already talked about what is edutainment. Thank you again for that history class. It was great. First history class that I've actually really enjoyed. I was never a history nerd, unfortunately, but in general, nowadays there's so much content. Let's start with that. There's content everywhere, and I'm not talking the dances on TikTok. I'm not talking the look at how rich I am on Instagram, or the fake videos we see on Facebook that it's like that was staged. Like, there's tons of different content. How would this differ, in your opinion, in a big way? How would this differ from any other type of content?
I think what you said earlier is a great way to start this conversation. A lot of the way we learn about things is boring, but I think we use the word boring when maybe it's actually that what is being taught, what is being shared, is just very technical or very complex. And because of this complexity, trying to transmit that knowledge to an audience gets lost.
Or
And
time consuming. Yeah.
yeah. And so what I want to try to encourage people to do is that when they are creating content and you try to show this to people, you should have a test group that you try to show it to. And that test group should not always include just your coworkers. And I'll give you an example. We created a podcast at PandaDoc right at the heart of the pandemic in 2020, and there were lots of podcasts out and about. I didn't want to just create the same thing that everyone else was creating, and I wanted to do it in a way where we weren't putting people to sleep. And so I said, let's try to blend genres. There's plenty of business podcasts. There's also plenty of comedy podcasts, but I haven't come across too many that try to blend comedy and business together. So when you're trying to create content and you want to try to create something that's a little bit different, it's easy for us to get trapped in an echo chamber on LinkedIn or on Twitter or on Reddit to just want to emulate what other people are doing. And I encourage you to use that as inspiration, but to come back to yourself and do two things. Have I blended two separate ideas into one, or three separate ideas into one, to create something that's maybe pretty fresh, pretty new? And then two, have I tested this on an audience that's not just my coworkers, maybe a significant other, maybe a loved one, maybe somebody who's not in your industry? Get some feedback from them. How can I make this a little bit more approachable? Because a lot of times we're creating content for our ICP, and that's great, and that has its purpose, but our total addressable market's a little bit bigger. And that TAM is different from our ICP, and we need to think about those people when we're creating content.
Great answer. Yeah, we're both married, so I'm sure we always get feedback pretty much right away. But I definitely agree that it shouldn't be just those people that are right beside us. It should be the people that, you can kind of test it out on, but not go completely all out and just let it go. And then it's, time and resources that just kind of go down the drain if it's just everyone's like, oh, that was just terrible. But yeah, I mean, in general, how do you, so this is all talk for us. Like, we're talking about this is great. But like, what if someone was to ask us the question, so what makes edutainment such an effective way to engage and educate audiences? So like, what if someone goes into it thinking, am I really going to learn about a really good way to educate, but also at the same time actually be entertaining? Or is it going to look like I'm an idiot trying to educate someone on something that takes 3 days to learn? Like, how would you, what would you say to that person?
What I would say to that person is edutainment has been around for a very long time. And some of the best to ever do it certainly faced resistance when they were first attempting to try to do it. And I'll give you an example. I'm a big fan of Fred Rogers. He started a show back in the 60s called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. It became an international sensation, and it taught millions of children and families over the world on how to deal with very complex socio-emotional issues. There is a video that sticks in my mind where after the massacre of an American politician, Bobby Kennedy, not John Kennedy, but his brother was also assassinated. He put out an episode and he faced it head on, and he has a puppet of a tiger, and it was Daniel the Tiger, one of his recurring characters on his show, teaching families how to talk about assassination. And it is unbelievably fascinating to watch. It's in black and white. Again, you can check it out on YouTube. Just type in Mr. Rogers puppet assassination, a weird search query, you're going to get there. But I promise you, the video is unbelievable. It's 8 minutes long. And he is using edutainment to talk about and transmit knowledge on something that even our best politicians sometimes have no words for. They have no way of teaching people, well, how should I be grieving right now? How should I be dealing with this super complex thing? And so my advice to people when they're first setting out to do edutainment is understand that just because you face a little bit of resistance from people who are like, well, I'm not too sure about this, that's okay. Anytime you try to do something different or groundbreaking, it's probably going to be met with a little bit of resistance. And it's up to you, your belief in what you're doing, and your resiliency to just keep going. And if it's not working at your organization, I guarantee you there's an organization that is chomping at the bit for this. Put yourself out there.
Yeah. I'm thinking I just watched a video not long ago, and obviously this isn't as an edutainment, but it's more entertaining. Mr. Beast, he doesn't really teach us much unless you consider him teaching us that if you have a ton of money, you can do a ton of crazy, crap. Like, but anyways, he was just talking about like when you're trying to make your content good. So in a sense, this ties in for me personally with how to get out to the real people that we want to reach out to, the new partners that we're looking for. His points were, it's not about the viewers, it's not about the subscribers, it's about your videos. And it's about every single time you make a video, going back and understanding how to make it better or how to make the next one better. And so when you think about it in a way of, okay, how am I going to educate but also entertain? Maybe it gets to the point where you start off a little bit rigid, a little bit shy, and then all of a sudden you're doing webinars in panda suits and you just feel totally normal. So I couldn't agree more. I think that, there are people that are always going to be haters, and that's just the way that, that's just the world we live in, unfortunately. But I believe that, for you and I, we understand this already. And for all of you that are watching right now, there are going to be people that don't believe in you, and there are going to be people that don't think you're doing an amazing job, especially if you're doing kind of like funny, kind of like, in a sense, even maybe childish kind of content. But, one day when those clients do come in because of your content, you can have the opportunity then to be like, well, it worked out, and that person's going to kind of feel maybe I should actually start doing it. And so in a sense, that first person that was a hater now might see the real life, practice that worked and start thinking, maybe I'm actually going to start trying it myself, because if it worked for him, it might work for me. So yeah, in general, so as we're moving on, we wanted to give you a couple examples of, campaigns of like edutainment campaigns. So there's tons of different ways that you can make edutainment campaigns. Something that I think, Travis and I both do more often than not is videos. Obviously you can do the same thing in your emails. We've had emails come in, or we've sent emails out that actually are just like, let's get together for oysters, and I'll talk about so and so and so. And so you're already using that little bit of information that you have about them to bring them in, but you're offering something that's entertaining, but also to educate them on why you are a good fit, why you are the person that will bring them success. But let's get back to, the videos. So HubSpot has in general a list of different things that they can do, that they are doing, that we would consider, I guess, edutainment. They got hundreds of articles that are very, active, engaging on their blog. They do have like tools on their website, from like a website grader to an email signature generator. Not sure exactly how that comes into edutainment, but I'm sure that there's a way that they've set it up. I haven't actually personally seen this myself, but I'm sure that they've set it up in a way that it does, help you. But if you look at the two examples on the screen, it's like how to write an executive summary like a pro, free template. So they're wanting to give you this point of educational opportunity, but they're also making it nice, because if you know anything about YouTube, or if you've ever, learned about YouTube, thumbnails are very, very important. A lot of times when you're uploading a video and you got a great video, but the thumbnail is just like this, then people are gonna be like, what's with the thumbnail? And they're not gonna click on it. So you can tell they're definitely working on entertaining with a nice catchy thumbnail, but also, how it will open the opportunity for people to open up and actually start watching it. So good thumbnails. They've got really good video content in general. I haven't watched a ton of their videos, but the ones that I have watched, they've been always really good, really helpful. I mean, even just the simplest thing is of like, how does this one work? How does this button work? How does this section on my website work? How does this tool that we have work? That's also educating someone, but not just doing it like, click here, click here, click here, you're done. It's got to be interesting. You got to have somebody in the background that's just like, all right, we're going to help you get this thing ready. We're going to do it real fast, real quick, so you're not bored. It's even in that, like the tone. Wouldn't you agree?
I would definitely agree. There are some really great tactics when it comes to building out the video and how you are publicizing and syndicating it onto different networks. Thumbnail should be one of the very first things that you actually think about. When a lot of us, it's actually the last thing that we think about. We've put together the script, it's been approved and edited, we recorded it, it's gone through post-production, and now we're ready to upload it to YouTube or to Wistia or to Vidyard or to Loom, and we forgot about the thumbnail. And so one of the things that you'll see here that we also try to adopt with some of our newer designs is making sure that the thumbnail is legible from a smaller position on the page, so that when it is being, filled in by YouTube on the suggested videos page, 2, 3, 4 words maximum on that thumbnail. And then obviously HubSpot's probably A/B testing their thumbnails as well and seeing like, does having a human face on it do better than having like an animated or a graphic drawing on there, having that person pointing to something, as you can see there is some science into that they're doing. But I would say that the other part, I put out a post recently, and I'll try to pull it up. I'm not going to do it right now while we're live, but I'll pull it up and I'll bring it up later. But I had 7 tips for how to make a great edutainment video, like strategy wise, and thumbnail was definitely one of them.
Yeah. I don't want to just continue bringing him up, but like, I know Mr. Beast even pays like thousands of dollars for his thumbnails, just because it does really, help. And if you want to get good views, just, throw in ChatGPT's, logo, and people click it. Right now, that's pretty much one of the trends that everyone's like, oh, ChatGPT. So, but no, I mean, honestly, yeah, I couldn't agree more. They've got a bunch of other things as well. You should, if you haven't, you should go check them out. They've got TikToks, they've got YouTube, they've got a bunch of different really cool things. Canva is also another example. Kind of the same thing. We're kind of following the trend of just videos and how good the videos can be. That's been something that I personally have been very interested in for quite some time. In life, I feel like there's a couple different people. There's types of people. There's the people that when they're free, they like to read books. I wish I was one of those people. I really do. I'm not. It's hard for me. I feel like I have ADHD. So it's like the second I sit down, 3 seconds into the reading, I'm like, oh, I should do this. Nope, I have to read my book. But anyways, people that love books, that's great. People that love TV shows or movies, that's great. And then people love YouTube. Without even noticing it, I turned into a YouTube fanatic in the past couple years. Like every time I had free time, whether I'm in the car, driving somewhere in a cab, something like that, I'm just opening YouTube and just watching some kind of video content. And now it's to the point where I've understood that there's so many different types of videos. You mentioned earlier that we talked about Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's the same thing. He does a great job of entertaining, but also educating you on these mind-blowing facts about the world and about humans and about how we're made and so many different cool things. But Canva is not behind in the fact that they're also following in those footsteps of trying to create these how to animate your designs with Canva skill, helping us to understand what really, in a sense, can help us to grow and to see more success through videos. So kind of the same story. I also know that Grammarly is doing something completely different. Have you seen much of Grammarly's edutainment, and what would you have to say on this?
I was a Grammarly stan since 2017. So not trying to, flex my hipster muscles here on Martech, but I've been following Grammarly for a minute, and a lot of the stuff that we've done at PandaDoc was inspired by Grammarly, certainly, with a little Duolingo flair thrown in there as well. But I'm not familiar with this specific one, or if there's another one you were wanting to mention to me.
Yeah, so there's like a hack about saving time, money, something like that, if that's what I'm remembering. I think.
I don't know. I know this image that we've got pulled up is like, does this need to be a meeting? And like, such a great visual here. One of the things I think Grammarly does really well is gamifying their product in a way. And I think that speaks to a way of bringing edutainment into an actual SaaS product that maybe people aren't always thinking of when they think of edutainment. They think of maybe somebody like me in a costume, making a fool of themselves. But there can actually be other ways of, again, it comes down to the basic definition that I said at the outset, which is transmitting technical or complex knowledge in an entertaining way. And so one of the things Grammarly does a great job of is when you open their app or they send out their email to you, they're letting you know, like, hey, you used X number of words this month. That puts you in the top 1% of users. You have a huge vocabulary. Go you, or like, hey, we helped you fix like 77% of your errors. Or, hey, you had a really hard time spelling the word commitment this month for some reason. We helped you fix it 87 times. And you're like, oh, thanks, Grammarly. But I think it's a cool example.
Yeah, for sure. So I got another question for you. You'd mentioned the post that you did on LinkedIn, but we talked a little bit about some questions that I wanted to kind of just run by you today because I'm curious to hear, and I'm sure that our viewers are curious to hear. So, in your opinion, best practices for creating, engaging and effective edutainment content. Go.
I have 7 elements for great edutainment on YouTube videos specifically. And there is a difference between when you are creating a video for YouTube and you are creating a video for TikTok or LinkedIn. I will get into that later, but the 7 are: number 1, you've got to have a well-researched topic. The word edu is still in there, guys. We have to be educating an actual piece of knowledge or lesson. So you can't do that if you haven't done any research. The second one is a writer's room script punch up. So when we think of our very favorite TV shows, we think about how are they putting together pilot episodes? How are they putting together different seasons? You have to have a writer's room mentality. You don't always have to do this all on your own. So getting a couple of people to review scripts with you and punch them up, make them a little bit more interesting, cut out some bland stuff, maybe make the jokes a little snappier or rewrite some of the sections with you. That's a great way to do it. Third one is have a dynamic personality on camera. You did that little YouTube voice earlier, just like, hey, everybody, like and subscribe my stuff. There is not necessarily needing to go all the way into the deep end on that, but definitely one of the tips I give people when they're getting on camera for the first time is, hey, let's level up that energy by about 10%, because the way you talk to me in person and the way you talk to a camera, they're not going to be the same. It's going to fall flat, and I will show you. And I do side-by-side comparisons. I show them, punch it up 10%. Let's go, 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 go. Bring up the energy. And then they're like, okay, okay. And then they show them the side-by-side. They're like, wow, that is completely different. Thank you for that.
Yeah. No
The
monotone,
other one is
right?
having helpful on-screen text or captions, right? You talked about Mr. Beast. This is becoming commonplace. If your videos don't have visuals in them, what are you doing? But I think you can overdo it. And I think it's become almost hyperbole, where everyone's using the exact same style of like a greenish, yellowish shadow treatment placed over the caption text that pops out. It's like, it doesn't always, don't have to copy it exactly. Just make sure you've got captions on there. It doesn't matter how fancy they are, in my opinion. And then let's also talk about the occasional transitions for emphasis. Again, I think this is where it's starting to get a little bit overdone. But for somebody first starting out, it's good to keep transitions, interesting animations, and helpful on-screen text and captions in mind, that that's part of the process and it has to be. And then lastly is just an optimized checklist from vidIQ. Shout out vidIQ. I wish they'd sponsor me. They should be. It's a great tool for figuring out how to create keywords, tags, and thumbnails to optimize your videos for YouTube to the maximum capability, and making sure that you're doing everything within your power to have that video be successful and get viewed and suggested by YouTube. Those are my 7 top tips.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you haven't checked out vidIQ, we both recommend it. It'll really help. We're here to help. We want you to be more successful. So if you're feeling like you're doing great content, but you're not getting any views, you're not getting any kind of engagement, maybe you're not doing enough with the kind of SEO background side of this. Because unfortunately, YouTube's not just about doing the videos. There are, some more tedious tasks. Like I can't really stand putting in all these tags and keywords to get a perfect SEO score, but it does help in the long run. So yeah, great points. In general, I think that all of those points are great. I couldn't agree more. I feel like, especially nowadays, there's like not just even text on screen, but also icons, putting in these kind of like interesting little edits. Like for example, we had this one video not long ago, and our video editor blew my mind, because there's one part when I'm just looking at the camera, I say something and I pause and I got the smile, and he puts this little like cha-ching over my glasses, just like this like little shade, and it's just like, dude, that's entertaining when we're educating, especially. So yeah, kudos to him for that. It was great. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and move on, because we are trying to keep this going. We don't want to run short and not have time to answer some questions. So best practices for creating engaging and effective edutainment content. We just talked about that. We kind of got ahead of ourselves.
I jumped the gun. It's my fault. You're doing great, Josh.
I asked the question. I was just so interested, and I'm sure everyone else was as well. So best practice number 2: develop content based on the platform it will be stored. You mentioned that as well. Strive to make difficult subjects easy to understand. So I think that something that we haven't really talked about as well is there are those topics that are very detailed and very lengthy. For example, learning a language, or learning coding, or whatever you're trying to learn. It could even go to the point of education in general, but I'm thinking of like learning a language. Okay, so a lot of people like to learn languages. I learned multiple languages just by going out and watching movies in that language, and then never understanding anything until I got to the point where I had to stop asking questions to my friends. What does that mean? What does that mean? To the point where I got fluent and now I can just hang out. But there are people that use like Duolingo, for example. Have you ever heard of this program? It's a really nice program, but it's an edutainment kind of program, because it's not just, this is grammar, this is how you use the words, here's a new vocabulary, study it all, and then take a test. It does these really cool different things throughout the course of you trying to learn a language, that helps you, inspires you, and encourages you to have fun while you're learning, which is exactly what you want to do. So it's making a very difficult subject something that takes a long time, in a way that you don't want to stop learning. You don't want to stop learning. And that's essentially what all kind of edutainment, in my opinion, should be. It should be not just like, whether it's a long-term kind of like learning a language, education, or anything else that takes a long time, or these short topics, A, B, C, D, and so on. They should also have that same effect, that it's like, I want to come back and watch the next video, not just so that we get more subscribers and more viewers, but I really liked what was talked about. There's got to be more stuff out here that's super interesting. And I mean, honestly, when I'm looking at that dude in that sexy panda suit, like, why can I not stop watching? I mean, I gotta keep watching. So yeah. So anyways,
the one thing I'll add there, Josh, is like, dude, the bar is so low. So it's yours for the taking. Like it's ripe for you to go in there, and you don't have to make a video as good as Mr. Beast. You don't, or like, as like well edited as Mr. Beast. You don't have to get into a costume like me. The bar is so low that if you just inject just even a little smidget of like dry humor, if you're more of like a dry humor kind of person, and you just have like a decent editor or you get a little bit of editing yourself and skills of like how to do like little jump cuts or like a long zoom pause, you can go so far. So I
Yeah.
really want to use that to encourage anyone watching. I see 27 people in here with us right now. Like, doesn't take a lot. Okay. You can do with just a little bit, a whole lot of edutainment.
You can even use iMovie. I mean, or any other kind
That's
of.
how I got started.
Yeah.
iMovie, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, perfect. So CD map approach. So wanted to ask you some advice for businesses on how to incorporate, edutainment specifically with this approach, CD map approach. So what is this?
I first was introduced to this while working here at Pandadoc a couple of years ago. It might be a graph that people who are a little bit more well-versed in brand marketing are familiar with and seeing. But the idea is that brands fall into somewhere in these four quadrants of this YX axis of branding tone. So you have an unconventional brand. It says will fall here, but are not seen as central to their market, but are distinctive. Then you've got aspirational. Brands falling into this quadrant are both central to the market and distinct from other brands. In the bottom right quadrant, you've got mainstream, and then in the bottom left, you've got peripheral. Brands falling here are not central to the markets and are not viewed as distinct. Mainstream, I think that is basically self-explanatory. But what some great challenger brands are doing. So earlier I said like, hey, if your brand is like not really open to edutainment, maybe you should go see other companies that are open to that, because I promise you it'll be a lot more rewarding and fun when you're not fighting tooth and nail to just do the smallest thing. Is find brands who fall into the aspirational and unconventional quadrants. And you can ask that during your interview. And you can usually see it with brands that are starting to experiment with it by doing things a little bit more fun, things that are a little bit more standing out from the crowd. And you see this a lot in B2B SaaS right now. We've got our friends over at Lavender, our friends over at Vidyard, our friends over at Chili Piper, our friends over at Hockey Stack. They are doing some really cool, aspirational, unconventional marketing, and it's getting noticed. So I wanted to just show this so that people could see like, hey, there's actually research on this. And that all those companies I just mentioned are just B2B SaaS in a little bubble. But if you go even bigger and you think about like the biggest consumer brands in the world, they're going to fall somewhere on these different axes. And this one that I'm drinking right now, Liquid Death, I bet you can figure out where that one's going to be if you've seen any of their commercials or even just read their name. It's probably pretty unconventional and pretty aspirational, but definitely in that upper left quadrant of unconventional.
That's interesting. I've never actually seen this before. That's super, super cool. And, kind of just like sparks a memory from when I first started working with Belkins. Kind of, you mentioned, you can tell right away if they're more open, if they're more interested in being something different. One of my first few calls when I was going through the interview process, back then I was basically requested to be an account manager. And so I was on a call with the head of account management, and I'm expecting him to be like in an office or something. And I pick up the call, and he's sitting in his car because he didn't have time to get to the office because he's so busy. And I'm thinking, this is either really, really, really cool because he's just so laid back, and I love that, or this is going to be a very big sign that I'm going to be working a lot. And both of those work for me because I want to see growth. I want to be successful. I want to have fun while doing it and not be terrified that it's like, if I'm not in my perfectly, ironed shirt for every single call, no big deal. So yeah, I think that, especially if you're not in a place where you're, set in stone, you feel like there's an opportunity for you to go somewhere else and to grow. And specifically, if you wanted to do this kind of, approach, if you're doing content or marketing, whether that be email, video, whatever it would be, it's always great to be able to test the water somehow. And, something that you mentioned about, potentially finding somebody that's more open to that. I also think that there is an opportunity that if you love what you're doing, but you're just feeling like you're not allowed to do that kind of edutainment that you want, try a little bit here, a little bit there, and then just wait till no one's noticing, because it's just a little bit of edutainment, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. And then all of a sudden they're getting so, your bosses are getting so used to all of what you're doing that they don't even notice how when you first started and where you are now is completely different. And so it's logical, because if you change everything up at once, they're gonna be like, what, wait, hold on, what did you just do? But a little bit of here, a little bit of a joke in here. And I've been super blessed that my boss is like, do whatever you want. I want to see fun content. So I'm like, thank God, I am just going to have so much fun. And we do really, we have so much fun when we shoot and stuff. And I can only imagine how much fun you have with all of your different costumes. Travis actually showed me his closet full of different costumes. So I can only imagine what goes down there at PandaDoc when you come with your costumes there. So,
Dude, what you said there is so key and crucial to everyone that's on this webinar listening today. You don't have to start with such a huge bang. Just dip your toe in it. Just experiment with it. And another tip too is if you're getting a lot of resistance, try doing it on your personal pages. And if your company's going to start policing you on your personal pages with just fun edutainment, nothing like really offensive, then again, maybe it's time to start looking elsewhere, because you need to be in a place. If you're on this webinar and you're trying to go from basic and boring to brilliant, you need to go work for people that are brilliant, and you deserve that. And you deserve a space to have what Josh just said, which is a boss who's like getting out of their way and just says, let's have some fun. Let's create some cool edutainment just like he's doing. So well said. Don't need to jump into the deep end overnight.
So everyone's probably like, this is awesome. This is great. I love it, edutainment, but how does this actually get me sales? So yeah, key elements for content to drive your sales. You know, what in your opinion, what would be the key elements that, you know, makes content successful in actually bringing in sales?
So when it comes to measuring edutainment content, I think that you're going to measure it the same way you measure any other media campaign. If it's a video for social, you're looking at engagement metrics, total plays, total impressions, audience demographics, and you're comparing it to either past metrics that you've collected before you started experimenting with this stuff, or if you don't have that information, you can also try to compare it against media from some of your competitors who are similar, maybe in age and size to you. One major difference with edutainment campaigns would be that you should really try to track the sentiment of a campaign. And this may not go over like, you know, super well with like people who are like, well, I only listen to hard, cold, scientific numbers. And it's like, well, that's not the way the world works. And if you're in marketing, you're in it because you understand it as a blend of art and science. So how do you measure sentiment of an edutainment campaign? Well, one great way to do that is by tracking and monitoring the qualitative responses. What are people saying in the comments? Are people messaging the brand or messaging you privately about how much they really enjoyed your piece of content? Screenshot it. Keep a file on your desktop or on Google Drive or wherever, and have those ready to go at the end of each quarter or at the end of each month, or heck, drop it in the Slack as soon as you get it. I do this all the time, and I consider it internal cheerleading for myself and the work I'm doing. People might sometimes be like, well, I don't want to come off as braggadocious. I don't want to become conceited or cocky. Don't look at it that way. If you're trying something different, if you're being creative, and you deserve to be recognized, and there's nothing wrong with just being like, hey, we got this great message. I wanted to share it with you. I think what we're doing is starting to capture some attention. Let's keep going. And executives love it. I tell you this because I presented on it at many and all hands, where I've shown the charts and the graphs and 235% increase in total audience, and that's great. And then you want to know what they remember? The screenshot where somebody wrote in all caps, "This guy's the best." I mean, that's the kind of stuff. You need to blend that. So that's how you're measuring on how it can bring sales to the company. And is anyone going to be watching a video and then immediately picking up the phone and being like, I'm going to call PandaDog, I'm going to call Belkins? No, they're not. I mean, very, very rarely. So there are ways where you can track this through some self-reported attribution. You can track it with cool, attribution tools like Hockey Stack or Google Analytics 4, or Seismic or whatever, where you can just say like, oh, I can see that, this visitor has a lot of sentiment from LinkedIn. Their score is pretty high. They've been engaging with our content. And then you can also just do some of the very basic tracking as well. So one of the things that we do at PandaDoc is we don't necessarily say like one-to-one attribution. Everybody wants to be like, they watched my video and I brought in $80,000. Like, calm down. Let's take a step back. actually what happened is that most job buyer journeys are very complex. They involve many different stages and steps in sometimes a long period of time, and they're touched in so many different areas. But what you can do is you can measure, okay, we started doing some edutainment consistently on this date. Now, have we seen any changes, good or bad, in website traffic? That is an easy one to monitor. You don't even freaking need a whole lot of cookies or anything. You can just say, like, what's the source? What is the organic source, direct source? LinkedIn, boom. Facebook, boom. TikTok, boom. Whatever it might be, or email with screenshot from funny video. That was a source of traffic. So looking at the things we've always been tracking and then being able to say, like, hey, we're helping to improve the metrics of our company and the sentiment of what people are saying about our brand. And here are the metrics, and here's the qualitative stuff combined.
Yeah, and it's something that also I'd like to add, so a lot of times there's going to be those customers that end up coming in that you never knew that they actually came on because of your efforts. They saw your videos, they loved their videos, they kept watching, they kept coming back. And then just one day they decided just to go over and, start following your LinkedIn page. And then they get connected with a sales rep, and then they talk about everything, but they forget to mention that they actually saw your videos. So sometimes you have to understand that it's important to just give your all and understand that maybe you're not always going to be kind of like the star of the show. Like, I brought it in, maybe you did bring it in, but you might not always know. So I hope that encourages you, but it is true. It happens. It does happen. So we're going to go ahead and put up another poll here on the screen for y'all. So what are the types of content where you want to avoid overt sales pitches? Types of content where you want to avoid overt sales pitches. Very curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for people to come in, I'll say the last thing that you can do if you're like, hey, I really want to be able to see, like, if videos convert anyone. The good news is there's tools like Vidyard, Wistia, and Loom, which all have pop over overlaid forms that you can put in. You can do something like, just give me your email address if you want more videos like this. Give me your first name, last name, company. You can put in all those fields. You can do it after they've watched the first 30 seconds. You can do it at the very end. But that is a way to say, like, hey, we brought in subscribers for our content. That is a great way to show, hey, we're making our content successful in terms of driving sales by being top of mind with people. But another way to typically, like, incorporate edutainment and video content is to blend it into all levels and organizations or parts of your organization. So sales, product, CS, and marketing, all 4 of those departments can incorporate edutainment. Anyway, I can give examples later, but yeah.
All right, we've got quite a few different answers: blog articles, case studies, white papers, and newsletters. So while we're finishing, the rest of the audience, if they want to go ahead and leave your answers and thoughts. So how to tailor your content to your target audience. There's a ton of different ways that you can do this. I know that you had mentioned that you can, tailor through like surveys and stuff like that. I also think that in a sense, sometimes you kind of have to use your gut. You have to use your sixth sense, if you want to call it. And understand that, a lot of times when your some videos go viral and some don't, that's because these videos are really interesting and they're really the topics that your viewers want to watch. So that's something to take into consideration. Do you have any quick thoughts? Because we do have to get moving.
Let's keep moving.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we talked about, different ways to, integrate edutainment, whether that be through LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever it be. So here's just a couple examples. Like I said, here's that outfit. I'm a little bit simpler. I don't have any of those cool outfits. I got a Batman outfit, but I didn't want to wear it today because, Batman doesn't have a beard and I don't really feel like shaving my beard. So
hey man, let the beard do the work for you, Josh.
Maybe I'll come next time as like Thor or something and let it grow out.
There you go.
You never know. But anyways, yeah. So I saw that Yulia was she threw our YouTube channels in the chat. So thanks for that. So yeah, by all means, go check out our channels. We've got tons of different videos on different topics. You know, we've got wells of information that we can both pour out, and it's just like, how do you fit this into a video? You know, there's always that question. Maybe it's just me, but I think it's probably not just me. It's like, how do I fit all of this information into a 3 or 5 minute video? It's impossible. So that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this webinar. So we just want to kind of give you some examples of what we do, what we believe is, you know, effective, and how this does actually work. But then also, you know, maybe what not to do. Like thumbnails, I'll just start there. We talked about thumbnails moving quickly, but I mean, the second one right here, I have no clue what in the world is going on with this thumbnail. I see like 100 different words, and I don't even understand, like, how did you fit everything? And then there's this like 4 boxes that I don't understand. So this one, and then, yeah, just a random guy on the side. It doesn't show me what it's supposed to be about. You know, free website promotion 2023, how to promote website for free. Very many like spam words. It's like, you want to watch this? I don't think you want to watch this. You can probably tell right away this isn't something that you want to watch. It's probably going to be some very poorly dubbed video with, you know, a lot of don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to subscribe, and then very little value. You know, these were just a couple of examples that we pulled out, you know, because, you know, whatever you're making, it's important that you invest in every aspect, not just in one aspect. So thumbnails, yeah, it's great. Don't have a great thumbnail and a terrible video. Don't have a great video and a terrible thumbnail. You know, from the very beginning, when you come up with the idea, even trying to just research that, and vidIQ has a great function where you can actually take that idea, put it into their program, and then see if that's something that people are looking for right now. Or you find something that's similar to that idea so that you can tie it in a way that's artistic and also creative, but also entertaining and educating, so that you can still get what you wanted to get across, but in a way that it's not just about, I want to just talk about this. You actually have to use something else that you might not enjoy talking about as much, but so that it leads the road into what you wanted to talk about. So from the very beginning, when you have the idea, all the way to the point where you are done with the script, the video, the post-production, the thumbnails, and then actually posting, it doesn't end there. You know, watching the reactions, watching the engagement, seeing how the people that you're hoping to reach out to, how they respond. Whether you've got, you know, 1,200 videos with this kind of a thumbnail, okay, not bad views, but then, you know, very simple, you know, just whatever you do with any kind of your content and edutainment, I strongly believe that you have to believe in it yourself. And if you believe in it yourself and you only grow over time, you're only going to see success. You're only going to see how things are working better, because every 100th video, you're going to look back at the first 100, and you're just going to be like, wow, I am so glad we learned from all of those videos. Because, like, look at what we do now. Look what we did back then. Look at how much more entertaining we are, but also look how much more value we provide, because that's true. It's not just going to be that you're a better performer, a better actor in front of a camera. You're really understanding how to provide value, but also going back to the target audience, how to provide value that your specific target audience wants to hear. And if it's a different target audience that you want to reach out to, just make another channel, you know, make another community, make another, whatever it would be, to reach that other audience that you really have a heart and desire for. So, ChatGPT, 2 words from you. What do you think? Good, bad? You love it? You hate it?
I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of using artificial intelligence to aid with content creation. I
Aid.
view
I
it
love
as a
that.
great starting point. When I get stuck with something, it's like having my own little personal idea bouncer offer. Without, I don't have a better word for that, but yeah, sounding board, I think is the term that we sometimes use. But I think AI and tools like ChatGPT, Jasper, SEO.ai, without human intervention or like finessing, it falls apart. And I'll give you an example. I found that somebody was commenting on my posts and one of my friends' posts by copying and pasting from, like, definitely from a ChatGPT or some sort of AI tool. And it was so obvious. It was like this big ass block paragraph comment where they just summarized what I had said in my post. And I called them out and was like, and I tagged them. I was like, hey, at so and so, did you use ChatGPT to comment here? And then they deleted their comments from like all of our things. And I was like, bro, that's so embarrassing. Come on.
Guilty.
Like, what are
Yeah.
you doing? And so, yeah, I think that it's great for inspiration on topics. And we certainly occasionally do that here at PandaDoc, and I use it as well. But you got to have that human intervention.
Yeah. I love what you said, aid. all these people are worried like it's going to take over. Everyone's not going to be working anymore. ChatGPT. I don't think that. Like, I believe it really does aid. Like when you don't know something, you want to talk about something, you're researching a topic, right? Instead of using Google, use ChatGPT. But whenever I've used it, I've always understood that there's still got to be that, your touch, because that's something that Neil deGrasse Tyson also mentioned. He talked about the fact that if there's something that I experienced today that is never, ever going to be documented anywhere, ChatGPT will never know that. And that is something that I personally can use to influence or to help that ChatGPT will never be able to do. That's what makes humans better than robots. Don't ever forget that. Humans are always better than robots. No matter how cool of a Will Smith movie that was years and years ago, we're always going to be better than robots, and we can use them to help us. I completely agree, to aid us. So, yeah. We have time for some question and answers. So everyone that's still here, thank you so much for listening, but we want to answer your questions. So please spam us with as many questions as you can, and we'll try and, in the next 5 minutes, answer every single one of them. So I guess we can just kind of wait for the answers for the questions and play ping pong. So what's your favorite costume that you've got while we're waiting for the first question?
I think my new favorite costume is I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate rock, paper, scissors, the like popular game where people go like rock, paper, scissors. I have a rock, paper, scissors outfit where like literally a pair of scissors, literally a rock, and literally a big piece of paper. And I'm like, how do I use this? That's my new favorite costume.
Huh. So serious question. When I'm sure you played that growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was it rock, paper, scissors, or was it rock, paper, scissors, shoot?
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
I guess I'm a little bit different in that sense. And I'll actually let you know something that's interesting. Like in Ukraine, there's like 5 different options besides rock, paper, scissors to that game, which makes it crazy complicated. It's like they have well, which is like the rock falls in the well, the scissors I think falls in the well, and then the paper closes the well, and then they have like fire, which is like burns paper, burns that, but the rock covers it. It's so complicated. I don't
Wow,
even
that's
know.
really impressive. I'm gonna use that like the next time I interact with, especially like I feel like a kid under 10. I'm gonna be like, oh, here I like fell in the well. They'll be like, what? Oh, you can't do that.
You pop out fire for the first time. They're like, rock, paper, scissors, shoot, fire. And they're like, what is that? That's not a game. You're like, you ain't seen the fire? This is fire, baby.
I wanted to go back. I saw in my notes there were some things that I wanted to mention as we're waiting for maybe some questions to come through. But for those that are still here, still hanging out and listening to us, I think another piece of advice I have for people who are like, I got really inspired listening to Josh and Travis today. I want to start experimenting with some edutainment stuff. Understand that if and when you're ready to try to present some small ideas, maybe a pilot to like some sort of like video series you want to do or whatever it might be, when you pitch it, I encourage you and recommend that you frame it in a way similar to how people frame SEO, which is that it's going to take some time for this thing to work. And this is a long-term strategy. This is not just something I do once and we flip on and overnight it saves our business. This is something that we're going to take a look at and say like, okay, we've now had 12, 18, 24 months of data. What are we seeing? Do we want to shut this off? Do we want to continue? Do we want to iterate? So make sure that when you're framing it that way, and I think marketing leadership understands SEO takes time. It's the same thing with edutainment, right? It's the same thing if you're trying to create some interesting stuff. Now, yeah, people go viral on TikTok, but that's a whole different can of worms we don't need to get into, but yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, even just like testing or not testing, but like looking at the results before you did edutainment, same time period, and then after that long time period and understanding you got an AB that you can kind of just understand what works better. I threw another poll up on the screen, so if you came up with new ideas after our webinar on how to utilize edutainment in your upcoming strategies, we'd be really inspired to see yes. If no, let us know in the comments what you think we should talk about more if we ever do another webinar. If we do, next time I'm wearing some kind of costume because I feel very just like standard black here, like, but anyways, okay.
I think we got 2 questions in the chat. One is from
Yeah.
Roxy and one from Anastasia.
All right. How would this work with LinkedIn?
Yeah,
Travis, you want to answer the first one?
for sure. Okay, so I'm pretty passionate about creating content for scrollers versus creating content for searchers. A lot of what I've been talking about today has been creating content for searchers, especially with the kind of 7 elements I outlined earlier, where you've got a vidIQ score and people are actively searching for something. So on LinkedIn, people are not actively searching for stuff. They are scrolling. They are there. And so when you create your content, it should be scroll stopping content. And so that's why sometimes when people are like, well, I have this incredible blog post that does so well from an SEO perspective, I posted on LinkedIn and it got 4 likes. So my tip here, Roshni, is that when you're creating edutainment content for LinkedIn, it's got to incorporate some of the elements that the big, gurus like Mr. Beast, encourage. So like having a quick hook within the first 2 seconds, having a really good thumbnail so that when the video auto loads on LinkedIn, there is a split second where you see a nice thumbnail before the video auto plays. Making sure that you've got maybe an enticing first line or 2 on your LinkedIn post before you have to hit the see more. So edutainment for scrollers is completely different, Roshni, and I would encourage you that when you create that content, how am I going to literally stop someone's thumb? That should be your mission when you're creating it on LinkedIn.
Next question is for you as well. I just read it and I'm like, oh, I can't talk about, when I first introduced edutainment at PandaDoc. So go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. So when I first introduced edutainment at PandaDoc, the initial reaction was hesitant. And I had to slowly ease into it. I'd already been doing some video content and it was serious, not serious, but it was just like flat. But I had been doing improv comedy and theater comedy at a local, like a performing art theater in my area. And I'd been having fun with it. And so when it came to bringing that element to it, I had like a pool to draw from. And I said, like, look, I'm going to do a pilot episode, Anastasia. So I recorded this really rinky dinky, crappy podcast that with $0 budget, but I went all in on the jokes, on the segments, on the games I was playing. And I just was like, we're going to create this pilot episode and we're going to show it to a small group of decision makers, get their feedback. And then that's their chance to say, like, please do more of this. Please do less of that. And the reason this worked, Anastasia, so well is because rather than just having a Zoom call being like, this is my idea, I want to do it. A pilot episode is what network television companies use all over the world and have for decades. And it allows your audience to not have to try to visualize like a big pie in the sky idea. And instead, it gives them a concrete thing to give feedback on. And that is immensely powerful. And that is my biggest tip of how to get people away from the hesitant stuff. And then the second part of it is they let me post a lot of the really like the stuff that was maybe a little bit more edgy on my personal account so that they could have plausible deniability and be like, that guy's insane. We didn't endorse that. He's fired. And it was kind of like I could be a scapegoat if I ever did cross the line too much, And those are 2 ways to do it: is using your personal account and doing a pilot episode.
So Roshni, once again, thanks for the next question. In a sense, in the B2B space, LinkedIn is the place to hit the target audience, isn't it? Would edutainment work in B2B space as well? I can add here that in a sense, target audience or B2B or B2C, there's like no way that an edutainment campaign couldn't be effective if you do it right. So what I mean by that is, if you have a target audience, maybe you're sending out connections on LinkedIn and you're connecting with a specific title, just like if you're sending out an email, you want to understand what their pain points are. You want to understand what makes them in their title. What are the things that they incorporate with constantly every single day. And then you want to make a video in the sense of, I feel exactly your pain points. Or like, for example, if you have CEOs, all of your LinkedIn connections are CEOs, maybe you don't want to make as much of like a crazy kind of like me wearing a scary Halloween mask talking about how to, better lead your team. They're going to look at me and think I'm a complete moron. But in a sense, what I've seen in the past has been that, really high seniority levels, positions and titles, and CEOs, COOs, anybody C-level, they really like those posts that have statistics. They really like those posts that have a good quote that really gets your brain thinking, something that maybe isn't necessarily something they've heard very often, not a very just kind of standard, but something that stands out. And then you can do some kind of like entertainment in there the same way that you're also educating them. So I think that edutainment should be in B2B and B2C no matter what. There's always got to be a way for us to be more, we got to enjoy life more. I mean, life's so short. You got to enjoy it more. We're going to go ahead and answer these last couple questions real fast. So what's the best way to build partnerships with other B2B brands or influencers? Do you prefer long-term or one-off campaigns? How do you approach someone you'd like to partner with? In general, best way to build partnerships with other B2B brands and influencers, from my opinion, you got to show that you're kind of on the same level in a sense. You got to show that you connect. It doesn't mean you have to be doing the same kind of content, the same kind of, mind process, but you got to have somewhat similar ideas. Like, for example, when Travis and I first met, it was just like a click right away. I'm just like, this is going to be great. I hope Travis felt the same way, but, right away I wasn't feeling like this is going to be hard, because Travis is such a very serious guy that doesn't want to have fun, that doesn't want to, be, enjoying this webinar, just wants to be straight to business. So there's those business people that work well with just business people that don't want to have a lot of fun. And then there's people like us that we'd like to just make jokes and, talk about something that's actually influential, but in a more fun and loving way. So that's kind of what my thought is. Long-term is usually harder to do in a sense, but it can provide a lot more results. What are your thoughts on that, Travis?
I agree with building partnerships with other B2B brands and influencers. A great way to start doing this, if you're like, I literally don't know anyone, you can just start commenting on people's posts that you like. That is the easiest, fastest way to do it. So Sam, my advice is like, I want to start seeing you comment on my posts. If you want to collaborate together, show an interest in me and what I'm doing, and then I'll show an interest back with you. And that is, I know Anastasia was commenting and liking from Belkins on a couple of my posts. And then we were going back and forth in a comment thread. And then we went into the DMs and we started talking about like, let's collaborate on some content. I want to introduce you to Josh. That's how these things happen, is you don't have to just like cold email or call somebody, but just look to make some friends with people who are like-minded. So that would be my first tip there. In terms of long-term one-off campaigns, I tend to prefer one-off campaigns as well, Josh. I think they're easier to execute and they're easier to measure, and they require less lift. I think long-term requires more strategy and more consistency to show up. And it also is going to require some buy-in. So my advice there is, if like, hey, we want to do a long-term podcast, okay, then I'm going to need the resources to make sure that I'm not burning myself out, because to actually do a podcast requires a lot of preparation, a lot of work. And so that would be my advice there, is not necessarily that long-term is bad. I've done 72 episodes of my podcast over almost 2.5 years. So I'm obviously doing some long-term stuff, but I had to get investment from my bosses, from my company, and saying, hey, I need some help. I need other people to help make this part of their workflow as well. And you got to speak up and do that. So,
And to add to that, I think it's important to ask the question yourself: can you do this for 2 years? Like, will you physically be able to learn what you want to learn? Or are you gonna, like you mentioned, are you gonna burn yourself out and be like, I don't want to do this? And then all of a sudden, what you're supposed to be doing for 2 years is now just like 3 months, and you're just like, forget it. Yeah. So infographics and charts, yeah, I mean, honestly, if they're entertaining, but if they're also showing really good value, and if they're showing real numbers that you think your audience would be into, yeah, I mean, in a sense, if you make a video, for example, trying to just be straight up and tell the truth instead of kind of patting yourself on the back always works better. Giving real life examples works better. No one wants to watch a video that's like, here's how you close a deal. We at Belkins, we at Belkins, we at Belkins, we at Belkins, we at Belkins. It gets just tiring, and you're just like, shut up. Like, I don't want to hear about you and Belkins. I want to hear other cases. And that's like something that we try and use as other resources. Like when we have trends blogs, we talk about other, like Higher Logic or Salesforce. It's important to understand that I don't want to just talk about me. I want you to learn and understand the information. I'll use Belkins as an example because I'd be a terrible employee if I didn't, just saying. but I got to use other companies as well, because I need you to understand this is not just about me. This is about you learning, growing, having fun doing it. So I think that's pretty much all the time that we have for today. And what a time. Yeah, I can do this. I guess I'll do that. I can't really do the dance, but thank you so much, everyone, for being here and sticking with us to the end. I hope you had as much fun as we did. I know I had a lot of fun. My drink is already gone. Travis,
Same
huge
here.
thank you for taking the time to just pour your heart out, give us the history lesson, give us some jokes, show off your really awesome costume. Maybe we'll be doing this again down the road. So
Hell yeah. Thank you guys. Appreciate you having me. Roshni, Julia, Anastasia, Josh, everybody in the chat, Sam. You guys are awesome. Appreciate all of you.
all right. Well, thank you, everyone, and have a good one.
Adios. Peace.